Fire is an important part of our ecosystem. Historical data shows that fire passed through our ponderosa pine forests on an average of 7 to 15 years, burning lightly in what we characterize as low-severity fire. However, a continuous decline in forest health since the 1890s has led to large, uncharacteristic wildfires that have completely altered our forest ecosystem processes. Over the past decade, an average of 63,000 acres on the Boise National Forest has burned each year. These fires have affected much more than just trees. Whether you're interested in 2x4s or quiet solitude, these fires are consuming it all by altering ecosystems, watershed conditions, vegetation patterns, and wildlife habitat for decades and possibly centuries. On July 28, 1994, a lightning strike started the Rabbit Creek Fire on the Idaho City District. This fire burned for more than 2 months across more than 150,000 acres. Over 74,000 acres burned at moderate or high severity. A large portion of the North Fork Boise River bull trout priority watershed was burned. It's the ecosystems in these areas that have been profoundly altered. Even prior to the control and containment of the Rabbit Creek Fire, our Burned Area Emergency Rehabilitation team initiated actions to start the wildfire recovery processes. The objective of BEAR is for immediate rehabilitation of watersheds in order to minimize threats to the ecosystem. Time is a factor. Only so much BEAR work could be completed prior to the approaching winter. Work continued the following spring and summer. However, not all areas were able to be treated due to a lack of time. The following year, on August 21st, the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning for the Idaho City District. The following evening, the North Fork of the Boise River, Crooked River, Bear River, and several contributory streams looked like this. The storm that occurred in these drainages was only a 1 to 5 year frequency event, the kind of storm that normally causes no noticeable damage to stream channels. However, due to severe fire effects from the Rabbit Creek Fire, the storm manifested itself as a 1,000-year runoff event, compounded by watersheds that lost their protective soil cover normally provided by a vegetative and duff layer. The severe wildfire greatly increased the amount of water-repellent soils. It was simply impossible to keep some of Idaho's mountains out of some important Idaho rivers. High and moderate severity fire has been identified as the #1 cause of the storm damage by a variety of scientists. Each of the drainages that experienced debris torrents burned at moderate to high severity during the Rabbit Creek Fire, which led to the soils becoming water repellent. During a high severity fire, the organic materials, such as pine needles, branches, and duff, burn so hot that the gases produced are forced into the soil. These gases cool and condense, leaving a waxy-like coating on the soil particles that act as a water-repellent barrier. When rain falls, the soil is not capable of absorbing the water. A parking lot effect occurs in the drainage. The rainwater literally rolls over the ground, carrying debris with it. As these small streams of mud and debris come together, a debris torrent is formed. The result is devastating. At milepost 30 on the North Fork Road, the sediment deposited by this unnamed intermittent stream blocked the flow of the river. The large trees, woody debris, and sediment have created a dam that flooded the roadway and filled in the channel to a height of 6 feet above the road. At this site alone, it is estimated that nearly 100,000 cubic yards of sediment and debris have been deposited to a height of up to 20 feet. This makes recovery efforts more intense and complicated. This is milepost 27, where Wren Creek flows into the North Fork of the Boise River. The channel has been filled with sediment and debris left by the flood. These large trees were actually torn out by the roots and carried into the river by this once small, unassuming creek. This is Trapper Creek. What used to be a quiet stream is now a blown-out gorge that measures more than 80 feet across and 40 feet deep in some areas. The force that altered this creek is estimated to have had a debris torrent of over 10,000 cubic feet per second, which carried this semi-truck more than 500 yards downstream. This is the site of a logging camp along the North Fork of the Boise River. These loggers had to literally run for their lives as the mud and debris torrent from Trapper Creek swept through their campsite.
In a matter of minutes, it sounded like thunder just blew up, and they came roaring down. This little tidal wave, whatever, just came right at us. We knew that was it. We got out of there. I was scared. I was glad nobody got hurt. I didn't, you know, campers can be replaced, you know, but not people, so I'm really glad nobody got hurt. That's all. You just gotta look at it positive. Thank God nobody did get killed or anything, because if we were sleeping, we probably would have been dead.
The Boise National Forest is working with Forest Service research stations and universities in developing and initiating watershed and fisheries monitoring in order to better understand fire-related watershed disturbances, restoration, and prevention measures. Preliminary analysis shows that up to 500,000 cubic yards of sediment and debris have been deposited in the streams and rivers of the Rabbit Creek fire area. All of the streams that experienced debris torrents also experienced a considerable amount of high and moderate severity burning during the Rabbit Creek fire. In fact, adjacent unburned and low severity burned watersheds had little or no problem dealing with the intensity of the storm. Efforts from road stormproofing projects by the Burned Area Emergency Rehabilitation team greatly reduced the amount of damage that could have occurred. In a litigation case filed against the Forest Service in the United States District Court, the judge ruled that road activities were not a significant contributing factor to the amount of sediment deposited into the streams and rivers. In fact, out of the several hundred miles of roads in the Boise River wildfire recovery area, only one location was impassable to vehicle traffic. In some situations, roads actually acted as debris dams, preventing them from moving downstream. Long-term watershed and fisheries monitoring and recovery efforts will need to be completed. All of the rivers and streams in the storm-damaged area are within bull trout priority watersheds. Spawning and rearing areas that previously existed in the North Fork and many other streams have been filled with sediment. Tributary streams were scoured to bedrock on steeper slopes and filled in on gentler slopes. The debris torrents occurred in areas that had been historically logged and areas that have not been logged. They occurred in ponderosa pine, mixed conifer, and spruce fir forest types. The effects of the storm damage were felt as far as 60 miles downstream in the city of Boise. Normally a popular recreation site, the Boise River had become Idaho's own Big Muddy. The Boise National Forest immediately started work to lessen and remove further threats to the storm-damaged areas. Priorities of work were established to help the river return to a more natural state prior to the upcoming spring runoff of 1996. Immediately following the storm, the BEAR team surveyed and completed an analysis of the damage. Roadwork started quickly to clean out culverts, rolling dips, and trash racks, which were filled with sediment as a result of the storm. Additional contour falling and straw bale check dams were installed in high-priority areas. The North Fork of the Boise River Road was determined to be a valuable asset to the public for recreation purposes, a key route for people living in the Atlanta area, as well as for the ongoing timber salvage operations. For these reasons, a determination to reopen this road was made. In order to open the road and to reduce the threat of further watershed damage, the river had to be restored to its original channel. Emergency watershed protection funding was made available through the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
The Forest Service took the money and put the rivers back into their original channels to protect the road systems, the bridges, and all of the other property in the area.
You've done it the right way, and I know in looking at the things, the integrity of the EWP program appears to me has been kept intact, and you've utilized those funds in the manner which they were appropriated to you for. So it's been good. I'm very impressed with what I've seen here today, and we'll report that back.
Efforts were concentrated at mileposts 27 and 30. At both sites, a temporary diversion channel was constructed to divert the river away from the road and to allow access for heavy equipment to begin restoration of the original channel. In order to remove the large amounts of sediment and woody debris, a combination of heavy equipment, blasting, and hand crews from the Southern Idaho Correctional Institution were used.
That proved to be very cost-effective and very effective in removing the debris and allowing the water to get back over and scour itself and heal itself back. The use of the SICI crew was very beneficial because, first of all, these individuals were highly motivated They want to do a good job, they want to do good work, and I think they really appreciated the chance to come out and get out of their environment. They jumped right in and started to work.
Some woody debris, which is important for long-term river restoration, was routed downstream to remain in the system. Hydrologists and engineers planned and implemented the river channel restoration and road reopening.
In order to protect the road from a long-term standpoint, we needed to try and put the river back into its old channel. That's where the river has historically flowed. That's where, from a physical science standpoint, that's where it wants to stay. So that was our objective when we designed, when the engineers and myself tried to put together some plans to figure out where this should go. We decided to put it back in a historic channel.
The project is really, I'm really happy with it. It's good to hang your hat on something and be proud to say that you were a part of that job and a part of that project, and how it's working and getting Mother Nature back to where it was before.
This is how Milepost 30 looks today. We have recently completed the EWP projects to protect the road facilities and the additional bear mitigation measures to lessen threats to the watershed prior to this spring's runoff. Through further monitoring, we will continue to work with Forest Service research stations and universities in order to determine long-term wildfire recovery needs. We will do all that we can to keep Idaho's mountains out of Idaho's rivers.